And good day, good night. Welcome to World Cup Today, Monday, June 4th. We're going to talk about Group D. But to start the week, yes, we have rebranded during the World Cup. World Cup Today available live during the World Cup 10 minutes after the end of the first game of the day. But this weekend, Duane and I were looking at the results, looking at the games and the storylines and the narratives. And Colorado, 7 straight defeat. And we thought it was about time we talked to Abbie Mood in Colorado about the Rapids. Abbie, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Abbie, look, I mean, there's a simple way to ask this question. This is a league that you're not set up to lose 7 straight. You're not supposed to be able to do that. How is this happening?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've been trying to figure that out ourselves over here. I mean, there's been a lot of change for the Rapids. I'm sure you guys have heard at least rumblings of it, because, we have a new coach. There have been 12 new players coming in, and then right at the beginning of the season, Court Ford, one of our best center backs, got injured. Marlon Hairston, our right wing back, got injured. So we've been playing a couple of the guys that they brought in from the USL, which, they've been figuring it out, but I don't know. Like the first few games, we were in the games and, it was just unlucky, quote unquote. But the last couple games, I would say, it just seems like things aren't clicking and it's just kind of a mess out there.
Well, you mentioned 12 changes, and the one consistent thing about MLS in my experience is the more consistent you are with your roster, with your makeup year after year, the more successful you'll be. Familiarity, helps along with and sort of builds everyone up a little bit. So is this just a matter of waiting this out and allowing these guys to learn themselves and maybe just accepting that this season's a bit of a loss, or have you selected the wrong 12 guys to come in?
I think I think it could be a combination of the two. We still have an open DP spot, and the 2 DPs that we do have are Tim Howard and Skousen Gashi, who Gashi's injured off and on. And then we have a couple other guys that we're paying a lot of money to sitting the bench, like Stefan Eigner isn't even on the bench because there's some drama going on with that. So it's the guys on the field are definitely not our best 11, but I think we're also, so they're not our best 11. We have some great talent sitting on the bench or injured, and then I also think we probably are missing a couple like key playmaker pieces that they need to, the front office probably should bring in.
Abbie, Anthony Hudson, the new manager of Colorado Rapids this year, taking over from Paolo Mastroeni from the last few years. One of the biggest thing for new managers, and I'm experiencing it in Montreal here as well with a new manager, is when it's a manager from the outside, there's a discovery period with MLS, with the way rules are functioning behind the scenes, which is what works as well. Talent level, when we assess players' skill set, some things do translate to MLS and some things don't. It's great if you're good with the ball, but having 3 men on yourself like you will have in MLS doesn't give you a lot of space. Where I'm going with this is Anthony Hudson showing progression as manager of Colorado Rapids, even though we're seeing 7 straight defeats?
Mm-hmm. I think in some ways he is, and by that I mean, because I used to go to practices last year with Pablo, or watch practices last year with Pablo, and I've watched practice almost every week with Anthony Hudson, and he's very organized. He makes the guys practice things until it looks good, until it works. He's changed up the formation. Pablo is very much into that 4-2-3-1, and Hudson's into the 3-5-2, which is a whole nother thing about whether or not that's actually working. But something that fans are seeing and fans are very frustrated with is that it doesn't seem that Hudson is super willing to tweak his tactics, and we'll see it sometimes mid-game. Like he might switch to, I think the other day he switched to a 4-3-3 mid-game because things weren't really working quite well. But we're seeing similar lineups, similar decisions with players who might not be playing super well in a position. So I think we're still trying to figure out what's going on with him, but there's definitely some blame starting to shift in his direction.
You mentioned the word blame, and I'm going to go there. You mentioned Tim Howard earlier as well, so I'm going to go there as well. Tim Howard, one of your two DPs, maybe arguably the worst statistic right now in Major League Soccer for a goalkeeper, Tim Howard. How is the DP goalkeeper Tim Howard experience going for the last year? We all remember, 2 years and a half now, we all remember how Zach McMath was playing before Tim Howard arrived. How are things now?
Well, I think, to be fair, I think the 3-man back line might not be working quite as well as we would like. So I think that has something to do with Tim's statistics. That being said, I personally think that he is starting to slow down a little bit and show his age a little bit. I wouldn't be mad if Zach McMath got a chance, because like you said, I mean, going back and looking at 2016, McMath and Howard had the same number of games, and McMath's statistics were actually better. So obviously McMath has been sitting the bench for 2 years and just playing off and on. But I'd like to see him get a chance, because we've seen Tim Howard make some pretty significant mistakes that have resulted in goals over the last couple games.
You mentioned 2016. I'm just wondering, in hindsight now, whether that run almost to the MLS Cup final was an outlier, or whether they had it figured out that year.
I think it was a very good team. I don't think they were necessarily as good as second for the Supporter Shield, because, it was just that buckle down defense, parking the bus, winning by one, getting one goal in and winning. Whereas in 2015 and then 2017, instead of winning by a goal, they'd lose by a goal. So they had this great defense, and that's what really carried them through 2016. So I think they do deserve credit for that. However, I don't think they were necessarily as good as it looked on paper.
In an ideal world, I'd like to focus on the fans that are in the stadium, but we don't live in an ideal world, and there were an awful lot of empty seats there. And part of that's got to be the losing. But from your perspective, as someone who has watched this team up close, what can they do to improve that aspect of the operation?
Well, I've asked this many times to lots of people, and on Burgundy Wave and on Reddit and all over the place. And, there's lots of little things that people always bring up, like our stadium's out in the suburbs, it's not in town, and people aren't just going to go on a Saturday night because they have nothing else to do. But I think honestly what it comes down to is they need to win some games. Like, people are going to come out if it's exciting soccer and the team's winning and it's a fun atmosphere, and it's hard when your team's on a losing streak the way the Rapids are.
You mentioned exciting soccer. And that's a debate that I've been having with a few of my colleagues here in Montreal for a while. Is it important? Where does winning stop to be the attraction to a team, and their style of play becoming more the attraction? Is it truly something that important? I'm just asking a question. I'm truly not trying to influence you, by Abbie, but is the style of soccer of the team, if wins are not there, is it important?
I mean, I think that's a good question, because, again, obviously 2016 is the most successful season that in recent history that we have to look back on, and people were coming out to those games, and it wasn't super exciting soccer. So that's a very valid question. 2016 was also when Tim Howard came, and that was super exciting for everyone. But I think for the Rapids, we want to see them score goals, because we're not used to seeing a lot of goals around here. So I think that kind of adds to the exciting soccer play. So I don't know if I really have an answer to that question. I guess winning's above everything else in sports. So I think that I would say it probably comes in a little bit above playing good soccer. But yeah, I think I don't want to say real. I would say the casual fan wants to see wins, and then the supporters would be okay with seeing some good soccer as long as some wins came every once in a while too.
You mentioned supporters, and the last year has been really important for supporters culture with the Save the Crew movement. Columbus probably moving to Austin next year, unless the model law works, or in any other last-ditch attempt from Columbus side to keep the team works. Where I'm going with this is we're seeing the attendance for Colorado over the last few years. We're seeing the results for Colorado over the last few years. Columbus and Colorado, I'm not saying I'm trying to compare each other, but if Columbus is not safe, there's a lot of teams that are not safe in the league. Is that something that worries some of the fans when you see the footprint of Colorado Rapids in their own market? Just Duane and I were trying to find the website, a little thing, and you search Colorado, and all the sports teams are listed, and it's the seventh one. Little details like this. I'm just wondering, is it a thing to worry about the future when you see Columbus maybe get up and move?
There are definitely fans who are concerned about it, especially because we're owned by Kroenke, and Kroenke is notorious for not caring about the sports teams that they own. I think what the Rapids have going for them is that we're not a huge market, but we're a sports market. We have hockey, basketball, football, we have all those kinds of big sports. So I think that Colorado will have a soccer team moving forward. Also, Kroenke owns some of the other teams in the area. I'm almost 100% sure that they have some real estate stuff going on around the stadium. So Kroenke just cares about money. And if the money is coming in from other sources and, they have a lot of things tied up that might not necessarily be the Rapids but are related to the Rapids, then I think I'd like to hope that we're safe. But, they just moved the Rams from St. Louis in the NFL. They moved the Rams from St. Louis to LA. So I don't think that we would ever be 100% for sure safe, but I'd like to think that we don't really have to worry about it that much.
I think that the mess that they're going through in Columbus with the stadium and all that might help you there. There might be a reluctance to go down that road again. Abbie, we are rebranded as World Cup today during the World Cup. Obviously, we're an MLS show most often, but I do want to turn our attention a little bit to that and just get your perspective as I assume an American fan looking at a World Cup without the U.S. in it. What are your feelings and what is the excitement about a World Cup in and around Denver right now?
I think everyone's kind of, which I imagine is kind of going on everywhere. Everyone's just picking their backup teams or teams that they're just, some people are pretty excited about. Some of the underdogs, I know a few people that are rooting for Iceland and a couple people for Costa Rica. And so it's kind of all over the place. Because with the U.S. not qualifying, I think one thing that is kind of exciting about it, which we've seen in the friendlies that they've played over the last week or so, there's a lot of young guys, and they're finally realizing the importance of longevity and finding these young players and developing them and starting to look outside of the Michael Bradley, Josie Altidore, Tim Howard kind of guys. So I think it sucks that we're not in it, but at the same time, I think it was a wake-up call, and I think that's a good thing.
All right, well, you're talking to two Canadians, so we don't really know what it feels like to be in there at all. So welcome to our World Cup experience. All right, Abbie, tell the listeners how they can follow your work and what's up at Burgundy Wave right now.
Yeah, you can follow me at Abbie Mood, AbbieMood, pretty much everywhere, or at Burgundy Wave. And yeah, we're excited about the Open Cup. They're going out to Nashville on Wednesday. So, and the Nashville coach is Gary Smith, who is the coach that took the Rapids to their only MLS Cup win in 2010. So it's kind of an interesting matchup that we're really excited to write about and to talk about and see what happens.
All right, Abbie, thanks for your time. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, thank you.
And we're back on Soccer Today. Duane Rollins with myself, Kevin Laramee. You can follow us on Twitter and social media at Soccer Today SPN and at 24th Minute at Kev Laramee. For myself, Duane Rollins, we're back. Group D today. It's the fourth group in a row. We're talking about Group D. 10 days before the World Cup. 10 days before we have Russia, Saudi Arabia. And I'm still trying to figure out it's going to be 5-6 goals in that first game. I don't know. But Duane, Group D, is this the closest thing to a group of death we have this year?
Group D stands for Da Best, I think, in my opinion. This is a pretty exciting group. We saw Nigeria play an England team on the weekend pretty strongly. Croatia is a perennial dark horse, obviously a third place finish back, well, quite a few years ago now, but right from the get-go, this is always a team that does well. Iceland is the magical Cinderella story of this, and, well, Messi's in the group. So this should be a pretty fun one. I'm looking forward to this group probably most of all. And, yeah, is it the group of death? Yeah, well, you can always argue that, but certainly, as I said, Group D stands for Da Best, in my opinion, right now.
Yeah, well, when I'm saying group of death is because we might handicap this group saying Argentina is the class of this group, and you got Iceland that are seeded too, when you got like Croatia and Nigeria. Any given day, any given of those four teams could beat any other ones of those four teams. That's how I look at it, because Nigeria is a lot better than we handicap them, first of all. Their jersey's amazing, sold out. That's one thing too. But the way they're performing, and we forget sometimes the history of Nigeria at the top level at the World Cup. It is a good, great even team from Africa. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if Nigeria beat Iceland, Nigeria beats Croatia. But then I wouldn't be surprised if Croatia beats Iceland too. Like, they could all beat each other, and in a way it's going to be up to goal differential or something. That's why, in my mind, you're saying the best. I'm saying maybe the closest thing to a group of death we have, because I can't really find two clear-cut favorite, and it's a bit of a crapshoot.
I'm going to say something a little controversial and not at all romantic here. I think Iceland's the fourth best team in this group.
I know, right?
I know that they had a great Euro. The Euro is not as strong as this, I don't think, in terms of the group that they were in. It's not a team that's going to sneak up on anyone anymore. They are a great story. There is no doubt about it. I have a feeling that we're going to hit saturation point on this story in the next week or so, especially already the World Cup preview, the Sports Illustrated World Cup preview is them on the cover,
and not
which
just
makes
that,
sense.
There's a documentary coming out tomorrow by Grant Wall on SI.tv, half an hour on Iceland, and you're right. But, Iceland is used to Europe. They're used to European play. They're used to European opponents. It's going to be very different against Nigeria. They're like, wait. Okay, yeah, there is a difference when you move continent, your adversaries. And Nigeria does play very differently than the way they're used to playing against a European opponent. So, no, there is something to the fact that now it's the world discovering Iceland. And some of the teams might have a tactical, or just the way they run, the way they play. I imagine a Nigeria beating Iceland on the flanks, and that might happen. And yeah, there's a difference when you welcome the world instead of just Europe.
Well, yeah, and look, again, this is a team that relies on, they've done a wonderful job. Do not dismiss the importance, the value of what they've accomplished. It is incredible that a country of that size, an incredible story altogether that they have gotten this far. But they lost to Norway 3-2 this weekend. They lost 3-0 to Mexico. Let's try that for a third time, Duane. Only beat Kosovo 2-0 in the previous rounds there before. Peru beat them 3-1. The results don't back up the story in terms of whether you want to pick. And I've seen people picking Iceland to make the semis and things like that. And I think that's your heart talking, not your head in that case. And again, a wonderful story, absolute wonderful story. It well hit saturation point for those of us that have been following this story before the Euros.
I think
that's the only reason why.
I think it was just now. I think the saturation point was just now. I think the story was cute, and it was cute in Europe, and it was all. But then back to reality. I think the reality check is going to come here. It's all good and well in Iceland, but they're not Argentina though, too, right? So there's that, and I think you're onto something here. Let's not sleep on Croatia. Luka Modric, 3-time winner.
Modric, yeah, we got a player that's top 10 in the world on that team, yeah, right there.
Exactly. So yeah, okay. So let's handicap this group. You mentioned Iceland. Maybe the fourth worst team in this group after the group stage. I can see that happen. Now the question is, Nigeria or Croatia or Argentina? Could Croatia do a surprise group stage and win the group?
Croatia's my dark horse pick in the tournament. In terms of a potential, I've asked this question to other people. Name a team outside of the norms that could win this thing potentially. And I do think we are close to the day that we will see an unexpected winner of a World Cup. I really do. And Croatia is right up there with it. Now, that said, they could go out of the group stage too. You're absolutely right. And Argentina, I mean, we haven't even talked about Argentina yet. They have the best player in the world or the second best player in the world, depending on where you fall in that, right?
And they almost didn't qualify for the World Cup. They were like 20 minutes away from not qualifying. They were like a Messi hat trick away from not qualifying.
But they got that Messi hat trick.
Messi hat trick.
Therein lies your Argentina dilemma. But to get back to Croatia, yeah, I'm going to pick them to win the group. And I'm going to pick Argentina to go out second, with Nigeria being, a decent third, and Iceland trailing this group, perhaps with no points. That's where I see this group flaming.
Talk about stabbing Cinderella and killing it. Talking about no points for Iceland after the group stage and fourth in the group. Bye-bye, Cinderella.
Well, again, I feel like the Grinch here. The Grinch, talking about Iceland, but they don't hold up to critical analysis here. That doesn't mean they can't do something. It doesn't mean they can't prove me wrong and exceed expectations again, but they're not going to sneak up at anyone. But yeah, I like Croatia a lot, and I do have actually picked them as one of my potential dark horse teams in this. And I don't know what to think of Argentina, because they are so good going forward. They are so bad at the back, and that is Argentina in a nutshell right now.
Duane, the mean one. Duane, the Grinch. You're a mean one, Mr. Duane. Anyways. Oh. Yeah, so Argentina second, Croatia first, Nigeria third, and Iceland fourth. This is our prediction for Group D. Now, when we look at this group, Group D, Argentina and Croatia are moving out. Croatia first, Iceland, Argentina second. Who has the potential to go the deepest out of those two teams? Yes, it's going to depend who they're facing and who finishes first and second. Just the fact that Croatia will be first will give a tougher opponent for Argentina in the knockout stage, a round of 16. So, between Argentina, second in their group, and Croatia first, who goes the deepest?
It sets up for Spain in the quarters, so it really depends on how you think this. I think whoever wins this group obviously has the best chance to go deeper. I think Croatia has the better potential. I don't trust Argentina yet. Obviously, the Messi factor is there, and he's always going to put them into a tournament or into any game they can win it as long as he's on the pitch. But they really are horrific going to the back right now. They really have a lot of questions to ask for there. I think any high-powered team, any team that has the ability to focus on Messi and nick a goal here is going to nick a goal just by the fact that Argentina can't defend for 90 minutes anymore. So that I'm going to go with Croatia again. I am much higher on them than I am on Argentina, and I hear myself say that out loud. And I'm normally someone like, not even like emotionally, I like Argentina. I've always kind of cheered for them a little bit. It's because the first great superstar that I remember watching was Maradona in '86. So I've always had a soft spot for them, but I don't know about this one. This might be too much even for Lionel Messi.
Well, let's finish the show with this, and that's a normal conversation when we talk about Messi. There was a photo shoot of Leo Messi with goats. I don't know if there's a pun in there somewhere. Must be. But that was an interesting idea. Messi and the goats for the goat. I don't know. But, well, what is...
Speaking of oversaturation.
I know, right?
Anyway, go on.
I know. What I'm wondering, Duane, is it true? Is it true that Messi needs a World Cup for his legacy? Is it true that if he doesn't win a World Cup, he's a failure? Is it true that Ronaldo, he won a Euro? That Messi couldn't even win a Copa America, Centenario? 7 straight final losses for Messi with Argentina, or any of those tropes you want to use. Is there something to it? Or should we just shut up and appreciate the guy for maybe the best finisher we have ever seen?
Well, look, it's funny. We're having a very similar conversation in hockey right now, right? And maybe he gets to answer that question, and if he wins 2 more games. And that wasn't my excuse to break it in. It's actually a relevant comparison right now. And I'm talking, of course, about Alexander Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals.
Ovi's more Ronaldo, though. Crosby's like Messi. Ovi's like Ronaldo, no? Anyways.
Well, I don't know. Depends on how you want to perceive them. Ovi is one of arguably the greatest natural goal scorer in NHL history. So what we always say about Messi kind of works for me, but that's a debate for another day. But regardless, the answer to me is no. He doesn't need to win a World Cup to put his legacy down there, because it is a team game ultimately. Maradona carried Argentina on its back. So maybe if you want to get into debates about whether Messi is at that level, if Messi's, top 4 or 5 all time, maybe then he has to do something special in the World Cup final. But he's almost single-handedly won the damn World Cup for them last World Cup, right? That was not a good team.
No,
I love Pablo Zabaleta. I love Pablo Zabaleta, but he's not a starter in a World Cup championship team. Okay?
He's not a starter in the final, and he was.
Yeah, so there you go. That's what I'm talking about here. So for him to get to the final last time, I think that alone might have been enough. And they were 30 minutes away. So
I know
would have, could have, should have, but yeah.
Messi's LeBron James. That's what it is. Messi's carrying his team to the NBA Finals, just like LeBron. But will he get poked in the eye and lose in the final? That might very well happen. But one of his own players forget the score and go the wrong way. And give the ball out because you think a guy's injured and he doesn't, and then the other team comes and scores, and the guy's like, "What are you doing? You the real MVP, man."
Yeah, that's look, yeah.
We're so topical.
They don't need to. It's a debate that's Dan Marino, if you want to go way back when and use another sport there. It's kind of a silly debate, but ultimately it's always going to happen. Lionel Messi, we are privileged to have watched him. He has won the Champions League. To me, that is really the it's probably the bigger test when you're looking at sort of from a football hipster kind of perspective. The World Cup is more of the overall thing, and obviously from a global perspective. But the national team is a funny little thing.
I think the days are over where you can carry a national team to a World Cup. I think you could do that in '86 for Maradona, but you can't do that now. Why? Because tactics. Because the level of the game is a bit more equal. The disparity between great players and the rest is a bit more manageable. But it's more the advent of tactics to nullify certain great superstars. You lowest common denominator it, and you have a bit more parity, or a bit more at least needing one team and not one player to carry a team. Just go back to the hand of God. Well, you'll never see a goal like this again, Duane. Can you imagine a manager in 2018 having his strikers, midfielders, and defenders being burned by a player like this when not one guy slide tackle the guy and bring him down? That would never happen in 2018.
You're talking about the other goal that Maradona scored in that game. Yeah, and
the other goal, what's been dubbed as the greatest goal of the century, which in my mind is stupid. Somebody tackle the guy. That's what I'm thinking when I see it. Where's the 2 cleat studs up? Come on, red card doesn't matter. You just stop the goal of the World Cup. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I was going to bring the same goal up because you're right. I can't. The modern defensive tactics are going to be better, and that was against England too, which wasn't exactly. They weren't terrible in '86. They were only 4 years off going to a semifinals themselves. Different tournament back then too, 2014.
And they were 4 years away from going to the semi, so it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, no, exactly. They're still England, though. They tend to find a way, not find a way in a good way.
I know. Last night I was playing FIFA with my friends, and we were England, and we're like, all right, let's do this. Let's start first game against Tunisia. We need to win the first 2 games, make it out of the group. We lost against Tunisia. Then we lost against freaking Belgium. We're exited. Boom. Brexit after the group stage.
Yeah, wait for the. Also, speaking of played out, wait for the breakfast jokes if they go out early in this one. To go back to the final predictions. Yeah, Croatia has been for me that said, okay, I also picked them as a dark horse in the last World Cup, but they didn't have a great World Cup, so that's take my words with a grain of salt. But they are an immensely talented team that kind of slides under the radar a little bit because the Eastern European teams kind of always do. But this is a team that has gone deep in a couple of major competitions in its short history. They've only been at a country. Well, that's a political debate. They've only been a FIFA country since '97, I believe. So this is a fairly young nation when it comes to its history, but it's had a pretty good history already.
Yeah, it did. And as always, you can follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute and myself at Kev Laramee. We'll be back tomorrow on World Cup Today with the latest news. There will be some talk tomorrow about Germany's 23-name roster. Le Roi Sané, the king himself, did not make the team, and a few other big names off of that club. So interesting topics to talk about. And of course, today was D, so tomorrow is Group F. And for Duane Rollins, I'm Kevin Laramee. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel to never miss a live show. YouTube.com/sports podcasting network. $5 a month gives you access to ads-free versions of our podcast, which you can find at patreon.com/sports podcasting network. $2 a month will give you access exclusively to the Two Solitudes Soccer Show, the #1 premium soccer podcast about Canadian soccer in Canada. Yes, #1, of course. And as always, have a great soccer.